Are you the oldest, the youngest, or somewhere in the middle? Before I say another word, you probably already have a guess about how that shaped you. And here's the strange part. You're probably at least partly right. Birth order isn't destiny, and it doesn't decide your entire personality on its own. But decades of research keep finding the same quiet pattern. Siblings who grow up in the exact same house, with the exact same parents, often turn out surprisingly different, and a lot of that difference lines up with the order they were born in. Why would something as random as being born first or third change who you become? It comes down to one simple idea. You don't just grow up in a family. You grow up in a specific position inside that family, and each position comes with a completely different experience. Here's the first insight, and it explains a lot about firstborn specifically. For a while, the oldest child is essentially an only child, getting full attention, full resources, and full focus from parents who are often still figuring out how to raise kids at all. Then a sibling arrives, and something shifts. The oldest is quietly expected to grow up a little faster, to help, to set an example, to be responsible. Think about a typical firstborn at just 6 or 7 years old, already asked to watch a younger sibling for a few minutes, or to set a good example at the dinner table. Nobody hands them an instruction manual. They just absorb the role through repetition, year after year. That's why firstborns often grow into reliable, achievement-focused adults, sometimes a little cautious about risk, because a big part of their early identity was built around being dependable. Here's where most people get it a little bit wrong. They assume this happens because firstborns are naturally more responsible people. It's not really about nature. It's about years of quiet practice being placed in a leadership role before they were even old enough to ask for it. Now for the second insight, and this is where things get interesting for anyone in the middle. Middle children grow up negotiating a strange, in-between space. They're never the one who gets the first of anything, first steps, first day of school, first car, and they're never the baby who gets the built-in attention either. So they often develop a very particular skill, reading a room and adjusting to it. Picture a middle child at a family dinner, sensing tension between an older sibling and a parent, and instinctively cracking a joke to lighten the mood. That instinct usually isn't random. Middle children often become the negotiators of the family early on, learning to mediate simply because nobody handed them a clear role, so they had to build flexibility instead. Many go on to become genuinely skilled at reading people and diffusing conflict as adults, precisely because childhood gave them constant practice at it. And here's a smaller, quieter side effect worth mentioning. Some middle children describe feeling slightly invisible growing up, not tragically, just enough to shape them. That feeling often pushes them toward independence earlier than their siblings, building an identity that doesn't depend as heavily on parental attention. Now the third insight, and this one explains youngest children surprisingly well. By the time the last child arrives, parents are usually more relaxed, less anxious, and less strict than they were with the first. Rules bend a little more easily. There's also an entire household of older siblings acting as informal teachers, entertainers, and occasionally, targets for charm and humor. This is why youngest children are so often described as socially confident, funny, or a little rebellious. They spent years learning that charm and humor can get attention just as effectively as achievement, since the achievement lane was usually already taken by an older sibling anyway. There's a fourth pattern worth a quick mention too. Only children often blend traits from several of these positions at once, since they carry firstborn-level focus from parents without ever needing to share it, while also, without built-in siblings for daily practice, sometimes taking a little longer to develop certain social skills that come naturally through sibling conflict and negotiation. Now, an honest caveat, because this topic gets exaggerated online constantly. Birth order isn't a fixed, guaranteed formula. Family size, spacing between siblings, financial pressure, culture, and each parent's own personality all interact with birth order too. Some studies find strong patterns. Others find the effect is smaller than popular psychology suggests. The honest scientific answer is that birth order nudges personality in a real, measurable direction, but it doesn't lock anyone into a permanent script. So what can you actually do with this? If you recognize yourself in one of these patterns, use it as information, not an excuse. A firstborn can consciously practice taking more risks. A middle child can recognize their negotiation skill as a genuine strength worth naming out loud. A youngest child can build discipline on top of natural charm. And if you have siblings, try asking them directly how they experienced growing up in the same house. You might be surprised how differently the very same childhood looked from another seat at the table.